Hi, and welcome to episode 162, I think, of the Heartland Knits podcast. My name is Vicki, but you can find me as Heartland Knits on Ravelry and Instagram. And today is Sunday, February 19th, 2017. Welcome, and thank you for joining me on this most beautiful day. It is 60 degrees outside Fahrenheit here in Wisconsin in February. That just never happens. Um, I know other parts of the US are getting like weird weather in sort of a bad way, and it will turn around and we'll get more snow, but it's 60 degrees. So I wanted to sit down quick and give you a little update because I have started lots of new things. I have new knitting, I have new spinning, and I've been sewing a lot. So I wanted to quick update you, and then I'm going to go take a walk in this beautiful weather. So let me start out with the knitting and what has been on my needles. And I started a new project. I think in January I showed you I was swatching with this really pretty green Sun Valley Fibers yarn. And I decided, I kept kind of swatching, and I finally decided on a stitch pattern that I really liked. So I have been knitting on that, and so this is the stitch pattern I decided on. I really like it. It's fun to do, and this yarn is Sun Valley Fibers, her DKBFL, which I'm very much enjoying. And let's see, the color is called Granny Smith. So I'm alternating skeins, and this is going to be a sleeve. I'm just sort of knitting by the seat of my pants. You know, I'm just kind of playing it by ear, and obviously I'm doing, this is a sleeve, I'm doing it straight. It's not been blocked out yet, so that's why I'm like pulling it out. But I sort of have the idea of what I want to do. It's going to be a cardigan, and I'm going to do, at the bottom I just did a few ridges of garter, so that's what I had planned to do for the button bands. I'm half thinking maybe of putting a zipper in, but I'm not sure about that at all. So anyway, this is what I have been knitting on the most. It's really fun. I've got the sort of stitch pattern in my head now, and it's been a while since I've done kind of a very textured stitch pattern sweater, and I really love it. And I'm thinking, why have I not done more of these lately? I don't really know why. It's a nice stitch pattern. It's got a little bit of cables, which is what I want. It has a little bit of eyelets, but it's fun, and it has a nice rhythm. So the other thing that I'm knitting on is I started my knitting camp contest entry. This is Meg Swanson's knitting camp. It's the 44th year, so it is the original knitting camp. And we always have a contest at Off Timers. And so the day I registered, I started my contest entry, because you know what usually happens is I'm knitting something right down to the wire, and I have the idea of what I want to do for the contest, but I don't have the time to do it because I'm trying to finish a project. So this time I thought, I'm going to start it right away, but I can't show it to you because there are some campers who watch, and it has to be a secret. But that is what I have been knitting. I have nothing newly off the needles, but I did start some spinning, and I didn't take the bobbin off the wheel because I only started it like Friday night, so it's just a tiny little bit. But I can show you the fiber, which is beautiful, and that's really coming up kind of true. It's got darker and lighter, but it's this sort of coffee colored. It is merino and silk, and this comes from Heidi at the Artful You, which I don't know if she is still around or not. But But I bought this, I think 5 years ago at Madrona, and this is Madrona weekend, and so obviously I'm not there, but I was missing all my friends who were there, and another friend of mine who isn't there this year. We sort of were talking on text back and forth, and thought, well, we'll spin something that we got out there, because one year when I was out there, I kind of personal shopped for her, so she still has some of that fiber, and so I knew I had this, and it's spinning up really, really like a fine single. When I first took it out, I thought I'm going to do something really different and kind of have it like thick and thin or something. But when I started spinning it, it just wanted to be lace weight, and I have a target in mind for where that is going to go. So then in sewing, I have made considerable progress on my couture dress. This is the dress I'm doing following the Susan Culgy Craftsy class. And I think the last time I talked to you about it, I was working on the muslin, and I think I had thread traced the stitching lines on there. So kind of that week I basted by machine the muslin together and spent a day or two, a couple mornings in my bathrobe, because I had to keep like trying it on and taking it off and making it change, and then trying it on again. And I didn't want to keep getting dressed, so I just had kept my bathrobe on all day. But it was a process, because you change one little thing and then either pin it or even baste it. I raised the neck, and I changed the where the midriff falls, and I did all kinds of little changes. I raised the whole back, so I had to figure out how to get that so that you could still move, but the shoulders wouldn't be falling down, all of the things. So I finally got the muslin finished. So you finish it, and then you immediately rip it apart, because those pieces then become the pattern for the rest of the dress. So then I had to decide about what to use for the inner underlining. So I had the fabric that I had purchased, and I sort of did a little test between just holding the muslin or the silk organza underneath it and kind of seeing how it felt. And I had some kind of a pink cotton that I bought for lining fabric last summer, and I held that underneath there. I liked how the muslin felt underneath the fabric, and the cotton was very similar weight and such with that. And I thought, well, if I use the pink cotton, I will be using it up, because now I have found like better sources and better fabrics to use for linings, that I think my summer dresses, I'll be wanting to use that instead of this. And I thought, well, this will be a way to use it up. And I just felt like it gave the fashion fabric a little more body, a little more substance. So that's what I decided to go for. Take your muslin pieces and lay them out on the underlining and cut them out, cut out all the pieces, and then mark them the same way you did the muslin pieces with the wax tracing paper. And you kind of mark all the grain lines and stitching lines and notches and things on there, and then you lay those pieces out on your actual dress fabric. So I knew that the fabric that I had picked was probably not the easiest. It had a plaid, which I knew I wanted to be matching the plaids, and I knew it was quite like flexible. You could it was loosely woven, but once you put this on there, then it's stable. It stabilizes it. But getting it on there straight so that all of these little squares stayed square and didn't skew one way or the other. That was far more difficult than I sort of thought it was going to be. I started out, I usually cut out the fabric on my dining room table, and I put an extra leaf in that table to expand it so it would be longer. But it was still, because this is a plaid fabric, you do a single layer layout. So you have, instead of having the fabric doubled over, you have it single, and then it makes it a lot easier to kind of match up the plaids. But that's the theory anyway. But it, as it kind of spilled over the edges, it would like start to stretch out a shape. So I ended up putting it on the floor in the yarn room. I took the furniture out of there, that only the chair and so I could spread it out flat, and it still was the double to get it on there. So finally I got the pieces, pinned on, and then you cut them out. So that's what, like, this piece is a part of the back bodice. So I just have this pinned on there, and it's prepared to be basted on. So right now these two pieces are only just pinned together. And then the next thing you do is you baste the underlining to there. So you can sort of see, like, around the edges there, it's all basted. I have been using some thread that I found from my mom's stash. It was the kind of thread that she talked about using. That it's not made anymore. It's a Beldine Corticelli silk thread. It was really, really nice, and I ran out of it. So you can see I'm finished this one up with just some cotton thread that I had bought when I was doing the black dress last fall. So I'm hoping that comes out, because after you sew the dress together, you sew it right on the basting lines, and it can be hard to get out, because you're sewing, that's the point, is you want to be exactly on that line. And so anyway, that's the next step. So then after you have all the pieces basted, you baste them together. So you by hand, you baste the pieces together. And this is where I sort of veered off from her way of working it, because she did the kind of muslin fitting, and then she basted the entire dress together by hand and did another entire fitting to make sure that it was with the fashion fabric, it fit. She didn't want to make any changes before she sewed it with the machine. And I can totally see doing that if, like, next fall I decide I want to make this dress, and it's been 6 or 8 months since I've done the muslin, fit the muslin, and maybe I gained weight, maybe I lost weight. It would make sense to and be using those muslin pieces. It would make sense to baste the dress together just to make sure it's still going to fit the way, I don't want to make any changes. But because I went, directly from, tearing the muslin apart to laying it out, I figured I haven't changed then. So, and also because it was making me really anxious. You can see, these are like super huge selvages that I've got going on here, or, seam allowances, because the actual seam allowance is here where that basting line is, and then I've got all of this. So it will be trimmed back to about 1 inch, but it's like frayed like crazy, and it's making me really, really nervous. And I thought, I just have to know that it's going to work out and it's going to get under control if I before I do all the work. So I started out with the skirt, and that was probably one of the hardest pieces to do because they're big and you had to keep those squares square. You could not let it skew at all. So that was kind of frustrating and difficult, and it took way longer to baste those pieces together. Once the underlining is attached, then the thing is really stable, and then it's actually easier to have the grid, because then it's like a grid, so you can match up when you're matching up the seams of the skirt. You want to match that grid, so then you can it works better. So anyway, what is this? This is part of the back that I have those two pieces, and then so this is the front of the bodice. So I've and I have the two back pieces that aren't done yet. And in here I wanted to show you, I also right away I attached a stay with just a ribbon because it has kind of a lower neck and I didn't want this to keep stretching. So I put a ribbon stay in there right away. And I worked really hard at this because it's got a princess seam. So you can't match the little squares because they're curved. So I didn't worry about trying to match those up, but you did feel like you needed to keep the horizontal lines going across all the pieces. So I worked really hard at getting that, and I've not clipped these seams or anything because you can see, look at all that like frayingness. And I haven't clipped the front. So I'm waiting to kind of assemble the whole bodice, and then I will do all the clipping that needs to be done and securing the seam allowances done. So here is the skirt. So I've got this much. It doesn't have the back seam sewn yet because I find it easier to kind of work with assembling it when it's flat, and then at the end I will kind of do that back seam of the skirt and the zipper. But I can show you, I did catch stitch the seam allowances down so that these are trimmed back to 1 inch, and that's the width that I guess couture dresses have. That's what she, talked about. You want, as she said, it's, couture is you're being generous with your time and the materials and, all the way around. So you have these big seam allowances, but they are very flat and they are, stitched down, and they seem to be doing okay. I'm still worried about the fraying, but all of this will be covered with a lining, so you won't really see them. And then I have attached the midriff band, and as you can see, I did the midriff band on the bias, and I absolutely love the look of having that set on the bias, and then the skirt and the bodice will be set on grain, and it just brings a little something extra to it. It's not just the whole thing of this, gridded, kind of squares. And I did have room to do some little box pleats that I worked out kind of where to put them and how to work them. The thing about this dress, and at this point I am kind of working on this just for the experience of doing it. So I worked really hard at matching up the seams on the skirt, and I'm working, trying to learn new things because I'm not sure that this is ever going to be a wearable dress. I'm really enjoying the process of doing it. I don't mind all the hand stitching and the handwork at all. I actually really, really love it. It's just that this fabric I don't know if it seems to be square and all of that worried me at the start, but it's really heavy, and I don't know how comfortable it's going to feel when I'm wearing it. If it's going to feel like I'm just wearing a lead vest or something, um, just having it like all this whole fabric, which is basically the dress less the sleeves, sitting on my lap, it feels like a weight is on my lap. So I'm not sure that um, it's ever going to be like worn. I want to finish it, or I'm going to do it up to the point where I put the zipper on. I'm going to hand pick the zipper, and um, I'm thinking that at that point, I've done sleeves. I did sleeves in the black dress, and I did the lining the way that it would be put in this dress for the black dress also. I did that by hand. I haven't bought the lining fabric yet because I'm still like, I'm thinking, why spend the money on, because I was going to get silk crepe de chine, and why spend the money on that if I'm not sure about the dress yet. So um yeah, I don't know. It's a process I want to really like understand and kind of work through the entire process. I'm thinking that this fabric was just probably not a good choice, and um, sometimes you have to go through those learning curves of doing things. I remember when I was a newer knitter, I knit an Aran sweater. It was a beautiful pattern, but all over like cables out of this cotton, like a worsted weight cotton yarn, which the gauge worked fine. That like matched. I could get the gauge on it, and it all, it worked. But when you wore it, it just was it was like all of this cotton. Um, it was not a nice sweater to wear. So, you learn from those things. So maybe it'll be the same thing with this. But I want to kind of work through the rest of it and, get the whole thing assembled, and, once I put the zipper in, then I'll know if I don't think I'm going to really want to wear it. I will just say I learned what I needed to learn. And I think that can apply to knitting too. There's a lot of, people, I always hear, I have all these works in progress and I'm, not going to finish them. And they, feel bad if they, pull them out or they don't finish them. I always think, well, maybe you learned what you needed to learn from the project, whatever it is, if it's, working a certain technique or whatever, um, you've learned what you needed to learn, then you put it away. It doesn't always mean that you have to finish it. I don't, finishing it and then never wearing this dress just doesn't make sense to me either, because there's still a long way to go after, putting the lining in and all of that. There's still a long way to go, past that. But, sometimes it makes me feel, cut your losses when, like I know for sure. So anyway, that is where that is. But I do have a little show and tell, a little sewing show and tell. I had to go to Joann's for something. I don't know if it was a zipper or what it was, but I went there and I, thought, don't look at fabric at all, because I have 6 dresses worth of fabric, and the most of them are summer. I thought, sew kind of what you have first, and then, or at least sew a couple dresses, and then you can go and kind of think about, well, maybe what do I want like new for summer fabric or whatever. And I walked in the store and they had sort of a display, kind of, you had to walk right past it, and they had apparel fabric, which you don't often see there. And one of them was, they had 3 that I really liked. One of them was it was like a chambray with a pattern in it, which I don't have anything like that, but it was really lightweight, and I could just, and I thought, oh, this would be perfect. And I was like, you don't need, just let it live here, and if it's still here when you're ready to get more, then you'll know. So then I had to go down. I was not going to walk down any of the fabric aisles, and then there was like somebody in my way, like with a cart or something. So anyway, I just like thought I'll just go around, and so I was walking down this aisle and I saw this pink and orange fabric, and there's a pair of fluebogs that are coming out this spring that are pink and or not, yeah, pink and orange. And I just kind of stopped to pet it, thinking, oh, if I got those shoes, this fabric would match them. And you think, no, you don't need that. And then like 3 bolts down from there, I could not hardly believe my eyes that I saw this fabric. I just like took it out and I grabbed it and I hugged it and I walked around the store. There was no way I was ever going to talk myself out of getting it, because it was the reason why I started sewing last year, right about this time. Is that the year before, the summer before, I had looked all over for a pink eyelet dress and I could not find any, like anywhere. And even last year I looked for pink eyelet fabric and I couldn't find any. And I hadn't looked, I had thought about, well, when it's time that you want to, maybe get some more fabric, I thought, I haven't even looked at like fabric.com or Mood or anything. I haven't looked for anything. And then here it was. I found pink eyelet. It's got little, here you can see little circles. I found pink eyelet. There was no way I was not getting this. I was going to talk myself out of it. So I bought kind of all that was there, and I have a fair amount. I can definitely do a dress out of it. I'm not sure which pattern, if I'll try to do a different pattern or what, but I do think I did that eyelet dress last summer, and I wish I could have a do-over on that because I loved that fabric. And I just did that one that just had so it just had a sort of a free-floating lining in the inside. And for this, I think I am going to do it sort of like that. I'm going to do an inner lining, like backing this and like join the fabric as they're, in pieces, and then sew them kind of as one, because I think I will like the how that works better with the eyelet compared to the dress. That one I'm always feeling the lining shifting around, and so anyway, I think I will probably kind of do this sort of a technique with this, not necessarily a couture, but anyway, I forgot to show you something on that dress. So when I was talking about like securing the seam allowances down, so part of the reason why you have this underlining is the seam allowance is sewn just to the underlining. It is not sewn through to the outside fabric, so that you have this. You couldn't secure the selvages or the seam allowances down if it was just this fabric alone. Because you're sewing it right onto the pink fabric. So there are definite benefits to working like this. But anyway. So that is where it sits. I will have to let you know next week or next time. Maybe I'll be wearing that dress, or I'll at least keep it in long enough to show it to you. I'm not guaranteeing that it's going to be finished. But, as long as I learn something from it, I'm okay with it. So thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. I hope you all have a really great week, and until I see you next time, from my heart to yours, happy knitting.